I'm very grateful to everyone for welcoming us this morning, for being here this morning. This morning we're going to be speaking about mental health and how it intersects with Jewish law and halakha and Judaism in general. And one of the things that we're doing, and we're very grateful for, is that Rabbi Yoni Rosensweig has agreed to come to London and to speak about this. And I will say, I don't want to embarrass the Rav, but I will say unabashedly that Rabbi Yoni Rosensweig is one of the rabbis that I respect most in the world. And the reason for that is because he's courageously addressing an issue that very few, if any, other rabbis are addressing as he does. And that is that he is looking at mental health and how it is that it interacts with halakha. And in our discussion, you're going to hear why that's more than just about halakha. It's about people's lives and being seen. And he has done a tremendous amount of work in that area over the last 5 years and continues to. And so I asked if he would come here to London to speak about his work, to help to open this up for all of us so that we could come into the space, as it were. He wrote a book called Nafshi Bishe'elati, which deals with many halachic issues around mental health and how it is that it intersects with halakha. He started an institute in Israel, non-profit, called Ma'aglei Nefesh, which is also training other rabbis in order to be able to deal with this in a competent and robust way. And so what I want to do with the short time that we have this morning, and I believe we're going to have to end in about 30 minutes, and so it will be a short but hopefully a meaningful discussion, is to hear more from him directly about your work, about how it is that you are engaging with people, and what are some of the issues that come up. But for me, and this is where we're going to start, I'm always interested in the person doing the work. The more you understand the person doing the work, you better understand how it is and why it is that they're doing the work. And for me, that is an essential aspect, so that we see the human being. And so I'm going to start with this question, Kvod Harav, with your permission. Why are you doing this? What is it about this work that draws you in, that has, you've dedicated the bulk of your time and life and attention to these issues, to working with people in mental health and mental illness and addressing it halachically? Why are you doing this?
How did I get into this? I always say I kind of fell into this. It wasn't something that I necessarily expected to be doing. About 5 years ago, I received a few shilas as a community rabbi, and looking around the literature as one does when he doesn't know what the answer to something is, I realized that there almost is no literature on this subject, which is not to say the rabbis haven't paskined on shilas such as these in the past, or that no one has ever written any article about these issues. But if you're looking for a systematic response to questions of mental health, you will be hard-pressed to find some. And if you're wondering right now what that means, halacha and mental health, I'm talking about questions of listening to music on Shabbat, of fasting on Yom Kippur with an eating disorder, of having kibbud av va'em for parents who may have abused you in their past, your past, of speaking lashon hara during therapy, of dealing with OCD and kashrus and nida and tefillah, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. I can go on and on about the kinds of questions that I get, but that's just to give you an idea of what we're even talking about over here. So I went to a friend of mine, Dr. Shmuel Harris, who's a psychiatrist in Yerushalayim, and I said, let's learn this topic together, and you'll bring your mental health expertise, and I'll bring my rabbinic expertise. I'll already say that I'm not in any way, shape, or form a mental health professional, nor do I pretend to be. I'm very, very careful to know my boundaries, to know where I'm okay and where I'm not okay, where I can talk and where I can't talk. People do often, because I'm in the field, ask me questions that are way beyond anything that I'm qualified to answer, and I tell them so. They say, can you recommend a therapy? And I say, I can recommend a therapist, but I can't recommend a therapy. That's not for me to recommend. I can't tell you what to do and how to solve your problem. I can solve a halachic specific issue, but I know where my line is. I know what I'm good at, know what I'm not good at. And it's important for all of us to obviously know those things. So we learned together, and slowly but surely, when I started learning with my friend Dr. Harris, I realized there was more than just one or two or three questions to answer. It's much more than that, and people are in real need. And I always say 2.5 years ago when I made my interest public, because I started the work 5 years ago, but when I finally publicly told people that I was dealing with this on a few posts on social media, the whole thing really just exploded from there. The questions came, like in one after another. I always say I've had smicha since 2005. Okay, so I guess I've been a rabbi for about 17 years. I would say that in the last, so I said about 2.5 years. So I'd say in the last 2.5 years, I've had more shilas on mental health per week than I've had in all of my 13 years of the rabbinate preceding that put together. Yeah, because what does that show? It shows that there's a lot of questions and people just don't know a lot of times who to ask or where to ask them. But it's not that there aren't questions. And I think that that's a little bit part of why sometimes rabbis aren't dealing with these things. Maybe it's part of the reason why there's such a dearth of literature on the subject, because people don't get asked. They're not getting asked, so then there obviously aren't so many issues, but there are a lot of issues. But because of stigma and because of shame and because of the people don't want to share and don't want to expose, et cetera, so we don't get asked. But once I started getting asked, it was all the more clear to me that this was a field that was so necessary to get involved in and to answer people's questions, because they were in real distress, in real pain, and they so much needed that response.
Thank you, Rob. We're going to talk about the specific questions in a bit. We'll have a sense of kind of what are the questions that the rabbi receives. But we're going to stay on you for a minute. You've been doing this work for over 5 years. How has this impacted you as a person, as a rabbi? How have you changed as a result of your work and the interaction? What's different?
Right. I'm a very intellectual person naturally. I come from a Rav Soloveitchik household. I remember when I came to yeshiva, and they gave me a test. They gave me a test on a piece from Reb Chaim of Brisk, from Shiur Reb Chaim Levy. I was very happy. That's stuff I grew up on. It's for some maybe it's like a difficult piece of learning, but for me it was very, very classic. I come from a very intellectual place. That's naturally where I am, and I've always thought that growing up as I grew as a rabbi, as I continued to do my work as a rabbi, I always thought that that would be my forte, and that's where I would distinguish myself and be able through my learning to really make a difference. And the opposite happened to me. In other words, this thing that I'm doing with mental health did not, meaning yes, it tested my intellectual skills as well, sure, but mostly what it challenged was my heart. Mostly what it challenged was my emotional skills, my empathy, my ability to really understand what people are going through and to connect to that and to see that. I've always had emotions, even before this, but certainly this is on a different level. In order to really understand mental health, you have to do one of two things. You have to either go through it, and I thankfully have not been challenged in that way and do not have to go through that. But the other option that you have is to really talk to people and understand from the inside what they're going through. I always say it's so important to hear people with lived experience. Almost everywhere I go, I try to take someone with me, that can speak about their experience. Not easy for them a lot of times, but it's so important to hear. In the training that I do for rabbis, I bring at least 4 people to speak about their experiences. It's not just about learning the halachas and the world of mental health and hearing from a doctor and from a professor and this and that. Yeah, you can hear that stuff. That's important too, to hear those perspectives and to understand that. There is no substitute for listening to someone with mental health challenges and what they go through and what it is on a day to day. And for that, you have to open up your heart and be able to really empathize with a person. So to the rabbi's question, how have I changed? I've changed immensely during the last 5 years. Immensely, because yes, I've spent years and years honing this, but this is really where it's at the end of the day. meaning the ability to really see the individuals in front of you, to understand what they're going through from the inside, and to be able to connect to that, and through that, then be able to use this, then be able to use the knowledge that you have, the halacha that you've learned, in order to really tackle the case in front of you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. So I'd like to get into a bit of this world, that you find yourself in. Can you share with us one or two significant questions that you've received, that you tend to receive, so that we can kind of understand what it is that you deal with and how it is that you have to work on on the issues?
Sure. The question that the rabbi has heard me say this so many times already, but the question that I most often get is one that has to do with music on Shabbat. And once again, I don't know the crowd that sits before me and to what extent you're exposed to these issues. I'm sure some of you know well what I'm talking about, either from yourselves or family members or other things. But Shabbos can be so hard for people. I always say it's like such a contrast, right? Because I love Shabbat. It's a beautiful day for me. It's a wonderful day. I sit with family and with friends. I'm even though I'm a community rabbi, I work on Shabbat, but I still manage to enjoy it and to benefit from it so much. And the flip side, right? What I hear from people with mental health challenges is, I hate Shabbat. That's what they say. I hate Shabbat. I dread Shabbat. I dread it from Thursday already. How am I going to get through it? How am I going to survive it? We just had a 3-day Yom Tov here, right? Not where I am from, but here you had a 3-day Yom Tov. So hard. 3 days without my phone. It's not like, phones, because, people are so glued to their phones. I mean, that's a different sickness. That's a different problem. But not for someone with mental health challenges. The phone can be the thing that saves them, that allows them to survive throughout difficult times. So it's so hard. And sometimes people don't understand that. They don't get that, But music on Shabbat, listening to music on Shabbat from people with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, very prevalent question. I get it almost weekly, I would say. Almost weekly. And we do need to give an answer to that. But I'd like to focus for a second on this question, because it brings to light a very important point. Okay? A lot of times regarding Shemitah, we're in a Shemitah year. So people use the pasuk, Giborei koach osei dvaro, that people who are willing to keep Shemitah, not to work the land during the Shemitah year, they're brave people. They do what Hashem says to do, despite very significant difficulties and challenges. That pasuk is so fitting to people with mental health challenges who ask me shailas. Imagine this individual. He's asking me a shaila. And I'm sure a lot of people would not even bother. They would just say, I can't do this. It's too much. It's just too much for me to keep halacha and to deal with my mental health challenges. These people, it's unbelievable. Giborei koach osei dvaro, absolutely. They are so brave and such yirat shamayim that they have. They don't feel that way. They feel like, I'm letting God down. I'm letting Judaism down. I'm letting myself down. I'm letting my spirituality down. Does Hashem hate me? Does he even love me? Am I even part of... And I look at them with awe. I'm inspired by them. I say, wow, look at you. With everything that you're going through, and you're still calling me up to get a heter, because you've been holding on, by the skin of your teeth, you've been holding on to your mental health and to keeping halacha, and you can't anymore. You don't know what to do. Of course you should listen to music on Shabbat. I tell the person, of course. But on the other hand, because I see how much you want to keep halacha, maybe we can reduce the amount of Chil Shabbos that is involved. Not for me. I mean, sure, there are also technical halachic reasons that I would want to do that. Hakal tchila. We try to do what's easiest first from a halachic perspective. Sure, I could come up with a technical reason, but it's for the person too. They want to be connected. That's the danger of leniency in halacha with these things, right? Think about it for a second. People always say, oh, the rabbis should be more lenient. Should we? Should we? 1 second. For the person who wants to feel connected to the community, connected to Judaism, connected to everything that's going on, when I'm lenient, I'm pushing him away from that. I'm disconnecting him from the kahal. I have to be careful with that. Now, if someone with anorexia asked me whether they should fast on Yom Kippur, I would usually say no. But there's a significant price to pay when I say no. The price is they don't fast on Yom Kippur. Now, everyone's in shul having, I wouldn't say the time of their lives, but they're having a spiritual experience, an invigorating, inspirational experience. They're hearing the chazan, they're fasting, they're putting in the effort. And what's this person doing? They're at home eating. How do they feel? Do they feel any more connected than they did before? Before they felt transparent because no one saw them and no one noticed their pain. Now they feel like they're not connected for a different reason. In a sense, I've reinforced the stigma, at least their self-stigma, that they are not part, that they are not seen, that they are not chelek of the kahal, of the people. So I spend my time, usually 2/3 of my conversations before Yom Kippur with people who I tell not to fast, are not even about the psak, about the halacha. They're more about, now what? What yes to do? What can I do that makes it feel like Yom Kippur? If I'm suffering from depression, a lot of times, this is not academic question, I got this question, yeah, more than once. Beating yourself on the chest can feel like you're beating yourself up. And it's hard. Some people say that it's very difficult to jumpstarts their depression, a depressive episode, etc. Is it really so important to do this? No, you don't have to actually do that, but it's symbolic, right? Like if I don't do that, then what? Some people can't even say vidui. It's too hard to berate yourself again and again. For someone with depression to say, "Afar ani b'chayai, kal vachomer b'mitati," I'm dust in my life, kal vachomer when I die. That's not something that a person with depression necessarily should be saying, depending on the situation, of course. Once again, to exempt the person from saying those things is the easy part. What am I giving him instead? I've taken away something that's very significant to that person. What am I giving back to them? How am I reinforcing their Judaism? I say a lot of different things to those people, by the way. A lot of times I say to them, there are other parts of the tefillah. Ata v'chartanu mikol ha'amim, ahavta otanu, v'ratzita banu, v'romamtanu mikol ha'lshonot, v'kidashtanu b'mitzvotecha, keravtanu malkeinu la'avonatecha. There's some beautiful pieces of the davening. That's also part of the davening. In fact, that's part of the Shmoneh Esrei. It's a significant part of the Shmoneh Esrei. The other part is after Shmoneh Esrei. There are other parts of the tefillah that you can connect to, that you can focus on, that might make you feel differently. It's the same thing with the music. Now I'm going back to that question, right? Same thing. Person wants to feel connected. So what am I going to do? Just tell them to be on their phone and listen to music? I could, but I have to understand that with that heter, I'm also taking something away. And if I'm taking something away, I have to give something in return. I can't just divest them of everything that means anything to them in the name of their mental health. Of course, I'll tend to their mental health, but I will also try and help. So what do? A lot of times I tell them to make a playlist on their phone. Start it from before Shabbat, put it on a loop, and put earphones in. And that way it's always playing. They don't have to press anything. They don't have to use the phone. Once again, even technically, halachically, it's true, it's better. But that's not the main reason here. The main reason is it's good for them. That it's what's important to them. So that they feel like they're keeping Shabbat. So that they feel that they can do both. Keep their mental health and keep Shabbat. And that sort of holistic response is what's really, really important here, is to give the person the foundation to do both.
Thank you. It's interesting because I certainly speak for myself, and I've heard you share this, and there may be an element that's counterintuitive to it, because one might think that, people who are asking these questions are really looking for an out. And what I hear you saying is that it's to the contrary. The very fact that they're asking the question means that they care about the halacha and how it is that they want to be able to hold their Judaism. And what they're asking for is what can I do in order to be able to be healthy and maintain, and the sensitivity to that, right? So that it's not, oh, don't worry, you don't have to, is really not it's not what you're saying. In other words, it's I understand your care for wanting to be engaged in Jewish life and law, and this is the unique situation for you and how you can do it. But here is where the context of Jewish life holds, right? Where it is that you can maintain. That's very, very important, I think, for certainly for me to be able to recognize and understand. And thank you for that. So I'd like to speak a little bit. I'm conscious of time, and I do want to open up for questions. So we'll see how we're doing. But I'm going to ask you this because we're coming to the end. We're here. We've taken time to be able to think on this and to listen to what you're sharing. We thank you so much for sharing. What do you want us to know? You're going to go home on Monday, tomorrow. Before you leave, what do you want us to know?
What do I want you to know? That's a good one. That's a good. No. I know what I want you to know. It's okay. Two things. The first thing that I want people to know, and once again, it may be that this is simple to you, but I don't think that it is as simple as some of you may think. I want you to know that mental health is out there. And once again, I know that people say, oh, I know that, I know. So I've given a few examples during my trip here. The rabbis heard them all already. But I always say, yes, yes, but you don't know as much as you can know, right? I'm not asking people to start reading articles and become professionals, become a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a social worker or anything of the sort. I always say, it's like, are you able to small talk about mental health in the same way you small talk about physical health? I think most people can't. I know I couldn't until, a few years ago. Like when you're sitting at the Shabbos table and you talk about someone from the Chas v'Shalom, from the community who has cancer, you're able to conduct, once again, even without the slightest bit of real knowledge, real medical knowledge. I don't know what chemotherapy really does, and even if I did, it wouldn't matter because still it would be like, a bit like, it's a buzzword. I know that chemotherapy goes with the cancer. I know what happens. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, if someone told me, oh, hair loss, cancer, I was like, oh yeah, those things go together. I understand that. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I can small talk it. I understand that a person like that has to go to an oncologist and not just a regular GP. I know the words, I know the small talk. When you hear that someone is suffering from anxiety or agoraphobia, do you even know what agoraphobia is? But whatever, let's say you do. Do you understand the process that this person is going to go through now? Do you know what they're going? Do you know what's going to be? Do you know where they have to go? A psychologist, psychiatrist? They have to take antidepressants. They have to take some other medication. What happens? How long is it going to be? How long does it go for? What are the treatments like? What's the prognosis? What's the course? Do we know how to small talk even about these issues? So I know everyone's aware of mental health as a general topic. Are we as aware of it to the extent that we can even have a normal, regular conversation with someone after something has occurred? Or are we completely clueless? I know I was clueless, okay, until I spent time. Now, I'm not saying I want to seem as proficient as I am after spending so much time that I have, but I think you understand my point. My point is, yes, we all care about mental health, but we need to know the issue a little bit more, understand what it is, understand what it's like, within the community. And the second thing is that I would like people to know and to understand is that they have the power to change things too. Because sometimes, people see I'm sitting over here, I'm a rabbi, I got this fancy suit on, so, people think, oh, fine, but that's you because you're a community leader and you're a halachist and we're not going to be paskening shilas. And that's true, you're not going to be paskening shilas. It doesn't mean you don't have things that you can do. What I'm doing here is I'm just talking about it. We can have other evenings like this, not with me. You can invite someone with lived experience to come and talk. You can yourselves think about how to have someone in the community who maybe people go to confidentially and tell them that stuff is going on so that he can get help for people in the community, just like we do for birthing mothers, et cetera, et cetera. There are lots of things that we can do to normalize the conversation. It's not just me. It's really not. If it's just me, then we're doomed. Let's put it that way. It can't be just me. I can't do it alone. I need everybody's help. I need everybody's help. When I say I mean everybody. So there was a student at Hasmo, girls, she asked a nice question. She told me, what are you saying? I have to now spend my whole life doing this, for I have to sacrifice my life for something? Of course not. Of course not. I told her, you have to live your life. I'm not talking about spending all your time searching out people with mental, and helping them. No. I just meant that you can pick up a phone to someone once in a while, or together with some friends, you can start something. There are a lot of ideas that I can give. It doesn't matter. I think that we all have a role to play. We all have a part in all of this that we can do. The support, I hear this time and again, this is the last thing I'll say. The support of the community is pivotal. I hear that time and again from people with lived experience, who they say, I didn't tell anybody, what was going on. I didn't reveal anything, et cetera, et cetera. It was very hard to keep on going like that. Eventually I broke. I sent something out to a few friends. They sent something out to the community. Suddenly the help came pouring in, and it was like a godsend. I can't do that. You can do that. So we should recognize the power and the strength of the community and know that this is not just about Rabbi Yoni Rosensweig. Like I said, if it is, that's not good, but it's about all of us.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. Okay. Can we have 5 minutes for questions? Are we good? Okay. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. Any questions? Yes.
How do you get people who are suffering with mental health to reach out?
Good question.
How do we get people who are suffering to reach out?
You're talking about me or you? In other words, me, today I'm a little bit well-known, so people just reach out automatically. At the beginning, I did it through social media. I would post on social media, and I would tell people that I was interested, and slowly but surely they would trickle. And then they start talking, they have their groups, and they start talking one to the other, and my name got around, and so and so and so. So that's how it is with me. Today it's not even not a problem, so to speak. People just reach out automatically, and I'm already, I've become like a name in that area.
But I think, I'm going to interject for 1 second on that, because only to be able to highlight it. They reach out because they know that they can speak and are welcomed and are seen. I think that's an important aspect of it, just to say that facilitates. When somebody feels that they will be treated realistically, respectfully, warmly, that's what facilitates the allowance for openness and dialogue. I'm sorry to interject, but I think to highlight that is important.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
So you've made your name synonymous with that. Yeah.
Fair enough. But I think that as a community, we can do that too. Like I said, if people feel like they will be understood, accepted, if people feel like they can tell their story and no one will just look at them as like, oh, you poor fellow, but also, okay, we're equals and you're part of the community, you're a peer, et cetera. If people feel that their stories will not scare people away, et cetera, I think that we can do those things. And like I said, it's about opening our hearts, it's about empathizing, it's about really listening to people and accepting their stories for what they are, meaning hearing the pain and accepting that pain. I think that's the gist of it. There are different ways to do it in different communities, but that's the gist of it.
I was kind of interested in specificity. Without obviously violating any confidences, could you maybe give us 1 or 2 examples of how you kind of creatively help someone with a couple of mental health challenges and how you reconciled it with Jewish law?
Sure. So that was right. I gave music and Shabbat. I gave an example, right, of creating a playlist from before Shabbat and all that, et cetera, which definitely helps a lot of people. They also tell me that it helps them, meaning they tell me, oh, was very helpful, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I get the feedback, so I know that that's so. And I mentioned fasting on Yom Kippur for eating disorders, which also, right, depends on understanding anorexia, et cetera. But let me give you a different example than all of those. Let's say there was a guy who was learning in yeshiva, okay, and he had what's called trichotillomania. He was pulling the hairs of his beard. Trichotillomania is hair pulling disorder. That's what it is, okay? It might not seem so bad, like when you hear it, like, oh, depression sounds bad, but that's like, okay, you pull some hairs. No, it's pretty bad. Yeah, when you pull hairs obsessively, it makes you look ridiculous. And also, a lot of times, it curtails your ability to go outside. Et cetera. No one wants to go outside when they look, et cetera. It reveals not only that they look disheveled, but also that they have something going on, right? No one wants to necessarily expose that. So it's a whole thing. What did he find? He found that when he chews gum, it stops him from doing that. I'm not going into coping mechanisms right now. Everyone has a different coping mechanism, and it's a little bit complicated. But for him, that was the coping mechanism. Wanted to know if he could chew gum on a fast day. That's what he wanted to know, okay, in his situation. So I looked into the halachics behind that, and once again, there are discussions about gum with taste, without taste, on Yom Kippur, which is a Torah prohibition, or on other fasts, which are non-Torah prohibitions, et cetera. And I set up the halacha for him and explained to him what to do. And basically, except for Yom Kippur, I thought that it was not a problem for him to chew the gum, and I showed it to him from the sources, and he thought that Yom Kippur, he'd be fine, and he could survive that. So, that's an example. Okay.
Good morning. My question is around how far do you think it's appropriate for normalizing the conversation, which may sound strange, but the question of there are real implications with revealing, let's say, conditions, revealing diagnosis. The question is how much sharing, but then also the real implications, say from dating world, what should do it. Oh, here's so-and-so, they're just recovering from clinical depression. Not saying here's someone who's got anxiety, I think that's a baseline sort of Jewish expectation, but kind of the more serious things in terms of sharing, we see a lot of that within celebrity culture, but there are real implications for relationships or possible work scenarios. And where do you find the balance in?
So you're talking about exposure as an example in shidduch situation, as an example, right?
Right. So I think this is the last question, right? Because I think we have to end, right? For you.
I think so.
But I'll answer this question. This is like a chicken and egg situation, okay? So people will say, oh, I don't want to reveal, yeah? Obviously, there are personality differences. Not everybody wants to talk, just like not everybody wants to tell everyone that chas v'shalom, they're suffering from cancer. Not everybody wants to tell. But a lot of people tell, and a lot of people do share that, and a lot of people get the support that comes with that. Not everybody likes sharing their private lives. That's a difference of personality, okay? And I'm not saying that there won't be difference of personality also with mental health. But what people say today that they don't want to share is because of the implications for shidduchim, for work, for this, for that, or the other. And if they knew that there weren't such implications, in the same way that there aren't, to some extent, with physical health, then they would more freely share. Okay? I'll put it to you differently. If we took aside all those things, all the implications, once again, for shidduchim, et cetera, my impression is people would share. People want to share that they're going through something. They want the support from the community. They want the support from friends. They want that feedback that people see, oh, that I'm going through something. They want to be seen. They want all those things. Like I said, if all things were equal between physical and mental health, there would still be personality differences where some people wouldn't share, of course. Yeah, but it would be very different than it is today. So, do I think that everybody wants to share everything? No. Do I think that many, many people want to share? Yes. I think they do. And I think that they would benefit from that sharing. I think they would benefit greatly from that sharing if they felt comfortable to do it.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone. It would be wonderful to be able to continue the conversation. And please God, we will in other ways. But I want to thank Rabbi Rosensweig for being here. I want to thank you all for taking your time to sit and to listen and to share this morning. Wish everybody a Shavua Tov, health, strength, happiness. And please God, we'll see what's next. Thank you.